Welcome to this Dive-In Festival session. I'm Rachel Pears, Inclusion and Diversity Lead and Internal Employment Counsel at RPC, a commercial law firm in London. I'm also a member of the steering committee of the Insurance Families Network, with a particular focus on neurodiversity. We are thrilled that you've been able to join us today for our session on embracing the power of neurodiversity. I think it's a term that's often misunderstood, or people fall back on assumptions or outdated stereotypes. I must admit that before becoming a parent of a neurodiverse child myself, I didn't know much about it either. Which is why today, it's our aim to bring you some inspiring firsthand perspectives of neurodiversity, whether it be from a parent, a manager, a team member, or a senior leader, that will hopefully dispel some of the myths and offer some insight into what neurodiversity really entails. It's our hope that at the results of this session, we will create more allies and in turn, more organizations willing to acknowledge and embrace the strengths that neurodiverse people can bring to the workplace. A few housekeeping points before we get started. Please do keep yourself muted during the presentations. If you have a question you'd like to ask any of our speakers, you can pop it in the Q&A box, and we'll have some time for questions at the end of the panel discussion. If we're not able to get to your question, as we only have an hour today, please feel free to reach out to GAIN or IFN, and we'll provide contact details for them later on in the session. Lastly, but by no means least, a huge thank you to the supporters of today's event: Apollo, Elliott Partnership, eSure, GAIN, iDawn, Liberty Specialty Markets, the Insurance Families Network, and Willis Towers Watson. Now, without further ado, I will hand over to the brilliant Alicia Nokan, Neurodiversity and Wellbeing Consultant at Expand the Circle. Alicia?
Thank you so much, Rachel. When I was preparing this opening keynote, I wondered what was it that I could say that would inspire you to take action to support and promote neurodiversity in your organization. Before I became a neurodiversity and wellbeing consultant, I worked in the insurance industry as an actuary for nearly a decade. So I certainly understood the importance of numbers. So I thought perhaps I could tell you that only 22% of autistic adults are in any type of employment, and inspire you to become a neurodiversity ally to make a positive social impact. Or perhaps I could tell you about some companies that are already benefiting from greater neurodiversity of the workforce. I could tell you, for example, about JP Morgan and how employing a group of autistic individuals increased productivity in one of the teams by 140%. And inspire you to become a neurodiversity ally to help your business be more successful. But then I remembered about insurers putting customers at the heart of everything they do. So instead, I decided to speak from the heart and tell you my story. Let's go back 2 years ago. 2 years ago, in September 2019, I attended a dive-in talk about neurodiversity. I was in person then, and I was in the audience. And in the audience as well, there was a lady who was wearing a red lipstick. And the lady with the red lipstick stood up, and before she asked a question to the panel, she confessed that she was autistic. 6 months later, two things happened. First, the first COVID case was reported in the UK. But secondly, I received my own diagnosis of the autism spectrum condition, or what in the past would have been labeled as Asperger's syndrome. Some of you might be wondering, surely Alicia cannot be autistic. She doesn't have that look. And sure, that's exactly what I thought at first about the lady with the red lipstick when she stood up at the Dive Talk in 2019. And yet, I do fit the diagnostic criteria, and many of your colleagues, they do as well. You see, you don't need to be like Rain Man to be autistic or otherwise neurodiverse. There simply isn't a specific way to look autistic. So, what does it actually mean to be autistic? Well, simply put, it's like having a different operating system. You run on Mac when most people run on Windows. You are one of the 1 in 7 people who see, experience, and process the world differently. Well, it is slightly more complicated than that, because there are other operating systems too. Let me expand on this. When we talk about neurodiversity, what we mean is this diversity of human brain wiring. If your brain runs on some form of Windows, you'd be described as neurotypical. But if you are running on a different operating system, which means that you see, experience, and process the world around you differently, you'd be described as neurodivergent. And the seeing, experience, and processing the world differently could be because you are autistic, have ADHD, have dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, or another condition that is part of the umbrella under neurodiversity. Some of you may have seen in the media that being neurodivergent comes with special abilities or superpowers. This may be why you've joined this event today in the first place. And sure, people like Greta Thunberg or Richard Branson, who consider themselves neurodivergent, they do attribute the success to thinking, seeing, and processing the world differently. Neurodivergence often comes with many strengths, and you will hear about some of them from the wonderful panel today. However, thinking, seeing, and processing information differently also comes with challenges. And this is why, when Greta Thunberg famously said that being different is a superpower, she stressed that it is only possible given the right circumstances. You see, Greta Thunberg and Richard Branson wouldn't have succeeded without support, understanding, and acceptance of the differences by other people. And this is where active allyship and active support of those whose brains run on the predominant operating system, the windows of the brain world, if you like, comes in. Reflecting on my own career as an actuary in the insurance sector, I don't think it would have been possible for me to succeed if I had not had received support and guidance from my many fantastic managers and colleagues, many of whom I know are attending this event today and continue to support me in my new career. I was lucky to work with people who could see beyond my single-mindedness, directedness, and obsession with planning, and who helped me with the parts of my role that I found challenging, such as prioritizing my workload, building workplace relationships, and influencing stakeholders. But not everyone is so lucky. Nearly 50% of autistic people experience bullying or harassment in the workplace. Many neurodivergent individuals are often viewed by their colleagues as disorganized, lazy, cold, or simply odd, which has an impact, of course, on their career progression, well-being, and mental health. But it doesn't have to be this way. Each and every one of you, whether you are a decision maker or not, can make a real difference to the neurodivergent community and to your businesses. You all have got the power to create the right circumstances in which neurodiverse talent can prosper, and thinking, seeing, and processing the world differently is a superpower and not a disability. In a few minutes, you will hear from a panel of 4 fantastic individuals who work in the insurance sector and who will share their own experiences of being neurodivergent or being an active ally to someone who is. But before I hand over to Rachel, I would like to share with you a short video with additional stories of the impact of neurodiversity allyship. Although neurodivergence is often invisible, the impact of neurodiversity allyship is not. Neurodiversity allyship has a visible impact on both the numbers and statistics, and on people's lives and hearts. With this in mind, may I please invite you to watch this short video, and I'm looking forward to joining you again during the Q&A.
So the workplace today, there's some really difficult problems to solve, and teams can work on them for a month and not make much progress. That's where I've found bringing people who think differently, like my son does, into the mix can actually help make a breakthrough and get the problem solved. I had the privilege to work with some neurodiverse colleagues. It's a real joy. So one of the challenges many neurodiverse people face is learning the unwritten rules in an organization. And being a parent of someone who's neurodiverse, actually, you're really well placed to help with that. You know what the neurodiverse person needs, and you know how the organization works. So you can be a fantastic ally to them.
So one of the things I really like about the insurance industry is that we have quite clear guidelines in things. The expectations across the board are quite consistent. I found my neurodiversity is a strength in this kind of role, is we sometimes get some pieces of work that are quite complicated. They come to us and there's something wrong with them. You know, there's discrepancies, there's errors, things aren't adding up, and it's not immediately clear why. And my boss can say to me, here's the policy, it's not adding up, we don't know why, can you fix it? The ability to be able to just focus on something to that degree, and the satisfaction of being able to dive so deep into investigation on something, I enjoy that kind of work, and I find that it's something that I'm naturally quite good at. And I think that's one of the areas where those of us who have hyper-focus can excel.
What's been interesting working in the industry is there's still a lot of people who are neurodiverse who still feel afraid to come forward. I was talking to an NED, a pension trustee, and he has dyslexia but didn't feel comfortable even amongst its peers as trustees to admit that he finds reading meeting documents really taxing. So for me as an ally, when I shared the experience of me being visually impaired and the struggles and challenges I have, he was immediately so much more open to talk about how difficult it was for him, because his strength as someone with dyslexia was very much being a visionary, and his contribution to the pension trustee board was looking more in the field of how they can see things differently.
I think there are times when office politics can be an issue that I'm completely oblivious to, but my manager has actually been extremely helpful with these kind of things. when he's giving me instructions, he's very patient at making sure he explains them in ways that make sense to my brain and clarifying with me if I need to, and re-explaining if I ask him 3 or 4 times to double check different aspects of an issue. But he's also very good at being my translator. Frequently, if I will have had a discussion with somebody or a meeting with someone and worked on a piece of something, I can then turn to him and say, can I just talk to you about this, and give him the background information I've received and ask him to translate it into something that means something more to me.
Thank you, Alicia. You know, I've heard parts of that introduction a few times when we were preparing for this event, but I never tire of hearing Alicia's insights. So now to introduce our panel speakers who have their own perspectives and thoughts on the topic of neurodiversity and allyship. Before I do, though, just to note, if you have any questions during the discussion, please do pop them into the Q&A box and we'll get to as many as we can at the end of the panel discussion. So turning to our panel now, I'm delighted to be joined today by Ed Mitchell, Pensions Administrator at Willis Towers Watson, Rebecca Shepherd, Technology and Administration Team Leader at Willis Towers Watson, Harry Blackburn, Head of Enterprise Business Architecture at Liberty Specialty Markets, and Laurie ONeill, Head of Diversity, Equity and Inclusion, UK and EMEA at AIG. Welcome all. Thank you for joining us today. So Ed, turning first to you, can you tell us a little bit about your experience and some of the positives that you see in neurodiversity?
Thank you, Rachel. If I can return to that wonderful quote from Greta Thunberg about superpowers, first of all, because superpowers for me is the primary positive of neurodiversity. Most neurodiverse people possess superpowers in one way or another, but it's important to stress that no two people who are neurodiverse possess the same superpowers. Some, for example, may have an efficiency with numbers, others an affinity with words. So for me personally, my superpower is I have a fantastic memory for retaining information, which means that I can recite procedural work exactly as it's written in the original and documented in the original manual, which makes me very much a go-to person among my team for information and for advice on procedural information. What I need to stress about superpowers is that superpowers are an asset to the employer, because the more neurodiverse people you have who you employ with these superpowers, the more variety of superpowers you have, and consequently it will result in a boost in the employer's efficiency and productivity. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Ed. It's funny, I remember somebody saying to me in terms of autism, once you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person, which is very true, isn't it? Rebecca, I'll put the question to you as Ed's manager, and tell me about your experience with neurodiversity and some positives that you see.
Thank you, Rachel. Hi, everyone. I'm a team leader at Willis Towers Watson, and I currently manage a large team of pensions administrators, including our last speaker, Ed. The opportunity to lead Ed as a core member of my team over the last 2 years has been one of the greatest privileges of my leadership career. We've had the opportunity to learn so much from each other, work through challenges, discover innovative solutions, and ultimately the best way of working together to serve our clients and our organisation as a whole. Every team member I have brings an assortment of positive influence and experience to our team. In Ed's case, as an individual, he is incredibly hardworking, possesses the ability to hyper-focus on a piece of work until it is done, is able to produce work to an incredibly high standard, recall many facts and pieces of information with his super memory that frequently keeps me on my toes, trudge his way through very dry and complex work with an indomitable spirit. And ultimately, when I allocate a piece of work to Ed to do, I know it will get done. No follow-up or reminders required. These traits are not always so easy to come by when managing a team. Working with Ed has been such a positive experience. It's allowed me to see things from a differing point of view, had me exercising my problem-solving abilities in new and sometimes challenging ways, constantly led me to reevaluate and sharpen my leadership techniques, has never let me rest on my laurels, and has provided me with solid workplace support, reward, and advocacy when I have needed it myself. Watching Ed progress from someone that has struggled with his confidence and capability to an empowered individual now very much in charge of his forward direction and workplace presence, with the confidence to advocate for himself and his skill set, abilities, and ongoing potential, has been a truly humbling, joy-filled, and remarkable experience. If you are a leader looking to ignite the possibility and marvel of coaching and development, then the opportunity to work with someone who is neurodiverse is absolutely invaluable. Ed is truly an asset to our organisation, and to not consider hiring from a fantastically neurodiverse pool of brilliant people would be a great disservice not only to the neurodivergent community, but the companies, organisations and corporations that would be missing out on that exceptional talent. This pool of talent contains people that are loyal, bright, innovative, disciplined, respectful of authority, exciting, technically minded, and likely with the exact set of skills that you need and are struggling to find. So for me, let's get the word out, break these stigmas, educate ourselves, and go and get them. Thank you.
Wow. So powerful. Thank you, Rebecca. Laurie, over to you. Same question.
Thank you, Rachel. So I'm Laurie ONeill. I head up the diversity, equity and inclusion efforts for the UK and EMEA regions for AIG. And I am neurodiverse, although I probably, until I did this job, wouldn't have really reflected on that fact as a superpower. But I was diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, as a child. And that condition tends to run in families, and it's shown as either inattentiveness or hyperactivity impulsiveness, or maybe a mixture of both. And it can impact on things like focus and organization skills. But as it's a developmental condition, many symptoms tend to improve with age. So, and possibly all or some of the symptoms may go. About 15% of adults have a full range of symptoms, but about 65% have some aspects. And when I look at my school reports, of course, they show lots of evidence of my inattentiveness, I should say. And although most aspects that were showing up when I was a child probably lessened with age, and so I didn't necessarily have a reason to think about them, there are some aspects that do remain and have sometimes, when I reflect, made it harder for me, especially when I'm under pressure. For example, I'm really impatient. It's always a standing joke in our family. I find it really difficult not to speak out of turn sometimes, especially when I get really excited about things. And I can either lose focus when under pressure or when not interested, or get really hyper focused and have problems with sleep. But I think what really makes me successful, and to kind of build on what Rebecca was talking about, what makes me successful at work is that I have two really great managers, and I've had really great managers in the past who've treated me as an individual, but understand, maybe not consciously, that I maybe think a little bit differently, or that maybe I might need a little bit of help, and I'm comfortable now going to them and asking for that to help me with focus. And they also recognize that, like all neurodiverse people, many neurodiverse people, that I bring really positive things to their team. I'm up for new challenges. I can take on a lot, huge capacity, huge enthusiasm, and I'm really flexible to changing priorities. I truly believe that the role that I currently do has been influenced by these experiences and also other experiences. For example, I have a family member diagnosed with Tourette's and OCD. Those are two other neurodiversities, and friends with children on the autism spectrum. So one of the reasons I do my role is I want to ensure that the job market and the cultures in companies is more exclusive for them, so that when they come in and join their future companies or our industry, that we can help them succeed. And I'd say a real light bulb moment was in a previous firm a few years back, where I picked up, at that point was dealing with more general HR. I picked up a particularly difficult employee relations case when things had had gone to a really difficult position. And I remember thinking that if only things had been approached differently with better awareness, better understanding much earlier on, then actually there were some really simple things that we could have done to enable the individual to thrive, to support the manager in helping manage and support them. And so for me, it's about organizations viewing neurodiverse people as great opportunities and positive opportunities, rather than reacting to situations when things may be less positive. In terms of the insurance industry, I think that our industry joins many others with new challenges, new and changing markets, and we desperately need neurodiverse talent to come up with new ways of us doing things, helping us to tap into new innovations, new markets, and ultimately be better representative of our customer base and the wider public. Thanks.
Thank you, Laurie. And it's so interesting because I think actually a lot of organizations who are sort of on their diversity and inclusion journey, shall we say, are always sort of striving fundamentally to that diversity of thought, irrespective of kind of background and, various characteristics. And, neurodiversity is just such a sort of obvious, example of different ways of thinking, isn't it? Thank you. Harry, I'd like to come to you next because you have a slightly different perspective on it. Could you let us know what your experience with neurodiversity is and any of the positives that you see?
Sure. So my experience and my motivation is rooted in my journey as a mum of an autistic son. And Rachel, as you know, I suppose, as with many parents of neurodiverse children, we do a lot of researching and observing, and many of us now have our own neurodiverse communities from whose experiences we can draw upon to really strengthen our understanding of our children. And we do that because we want to create environments that are inclusive of our children in the future. And while I think that is the case for all parents, I think it's more so for parents of children who've experienced exclusion and bias in spite of the wonderful qualities that they have to offer. So although that's what drew me to the conversation and the dialogue, from the point of view of wanting to see a more inclusive world for my son, and one where he wouldn't have the same struggles that I did, learned, through all that talking and observing, that neurodiversity at work can offer so much more than about being inclusive and being the right thing to do. And there are amazing benefits. I know we've touched on those on the panel already, to any organisation that can manage to build the right environment, but take a complete and holistic approach to this. And if we think about some of the skills that have already been mentioned and others that are in high demand in our market, the obvious one is that we benefit greatly from abilities around data and analytics and kind of pattern recognition, abilities to help us with forecasting. When we're in insurance, we all want that skill. And not to mention the creativity that we all seek in our people, the kind of creativity that stems innovation and really high quality solution design. So these are just a few of the skills, and there are so many more that are unique to each individual. And these skills and abilities that are in high demand are held by sections of the community that perhaps can't access us as a market or a workplace, or we don't know how to access them, or we do, but the retention isn't there because we haven't taken that complete holistic approach. We're not doing all the wonderful things that we've heard, for example, that Rebecca's doing. So there are so many positives. We need to do a bit of work to get to them. But specifically, the positives of neurodiversity and inclusion to me are about not only cultivating acceptance, which I think is essential and critical, but about creating a richer and balanced and more powerful talent force.
Wow, thank you, Harry. While I've got you, I'll ask you the next question, which actually kind of feeds on quite nicely from what you were just saying. So to you, what does allyship mean, whether, on an individual or collective basis?
So I'm going to be a bit awkward and I'm going to start by saying what I think allyship doesn't mean. So to me, it doesn't mean assuming that I know what's best for the individuals being represented. And I say that, because of my own lived experience. As a woman of colour, I want to be able to speak for myself, but I want what I have to say to be amplified through allies. What I don't want is a select few presuming to know my views without talking to me or listening to me. And I can only apply this experience and this mindset as an ally myself. But going back to what it does mean, on a collective basis, I think there are 3 aspects to it, which is great. So 3 ways for everyone to get involved. Firstly, I think it's about creating a platform, and this is about awareness. And there are many ways to do this. We can do that through events such as these, through making neurodiversity an agenda item on your organisation's D&I plan. At LSM, we're currently on a awareness drive that takes us to the end of the year. So we're kind of creating a platform that way. So that's really very much about the awareness piece. And then secondly, I think it's about hearing the voice and really listening to what people have to say. And again, we can do this through events such as these. It's been great to hear already from the panel today. And hopefully we can have more forums like this in the future that allow people to share their experiences, whether good or bad. And another way that we're doing it at Liberty is we're going to be holding some focus groups to really hear what our neurodiverse colleagues want to tell us, so that we can understand what we need to do to create that inclusive environment, and one that we can all thrive in and offer our potential is one of the things that we want to be able to do at work. So that's really very much about the listening piece. And thirdly, I think this is the easiest one, and it's about strengthening and kind of amplifying that voice. So we've heard what people have to say, and now we need to carry that message on. And we can do that through our communities of allies, through our D&I networks. Hopefully everyone who's on the call today can help with this. They can hear what's being said and carry on the message in their respective organisations. So that's what I think it is on a collective basis. And then as for me personally, I think to me it means always thinking about the impact of decisions and changes on all sections of our work community. And it means challenging behaviours or protocols that are not inclusive, or that might deny individuals from being able to thrive at work. To me, it means, most importantly, being willing to constantly educate and re-educate yourself, and being open to hearing views that might differ to your own, or to your own perceptions or preconceptions in the past. We all talk about bringing our authentic selves to work. And I think that can only be possible if we constantly seek to improve and refine the environment that we work in. And I think allyship is just one of the many ways through which we can achieve this.
Brilliant. Thank you, Harry. That's a good sort of to-do list for us all. Laurie, I'm curious, from your perspective, personally and professionally, actually, what you think allyship means, and sort of on an individual or collective basis.
I'm probably echoing some of the things that Harry said here, because I agree with them absolutely in my role that as an organisation, allyship for neurodiverse colleagues is a shift from focusing on attracting diverse talent, which is probably what everyone's thinking about right now, to actually a focus on cultures of inclusion. And at AIG we started quite a few years back on a journey really, which culminated in the launch of our Being You framework, which is really focused on intersectionality, belonging, and being able to bring your whole authentic self to work. And this is a fundamental message that we gave out in our company, that we don't just value differences, but that these differences make us a better company, and that we want to ensure that we're giving a message and providing a place where work is a safe space for people to thrive. And if you look at the population statistics, around about 15% of the population are neurodiverse, depending on which numbers you look at. But we definitely have to take the message here, that definitely have neurodiverse colleagues in all of our organizations already. And so if we focus on inclusion, we can help to set up that culture of trust and respect, and that should help with meaning that our neurodiverse colleagues are able to feel comfortable disclosing, and also being able to feel comfortable asking for any support they need to help them thrive. And alongside this cultural change that we need to do, there's more practical things that we can do to support neurodiversity. For example, on attracting talent, simple things around our processes that we can make them fit for purpose, like reviewing whether traditional recruitment methods are the right things for a particular job. Are they actually needed? Could we do something different? If, however, we are choosing traditional methods like the interviews, could we help not just neurodiverse individuals, but everyone in terms of being able to perform better in these situations, and by providing things like the questions in advance. And we've also in AIG, we've looked at things like recognizing that maybe to the earlier point, I think it was that Rebecca made, about neurodiverse individuals accessing our industry, recognizing that we may need to do more work on that. So we've started in the US and in Ireland, and hopefully we'll expand out further, neurodiverse internships to be able to give individuals support and access to our industries. But for current talent as well, it's something that we want to help support them. So at different points in their careers, for example, when they're being promoted, and being able to help support them so that when they go from potentially being subject matter experts where they're comfortable, to being managers and leaders, that they're supported to do that change and that transfer. Individually, I think we can all really contribute to this inclusive environment, and that's really important by being an ally, by having a learning mindset. So open, curious, interested, constantly seeking to learn. As Rachel commented, by meeting one neurodiverse individual doesn't mean that you understand all neurodiverse conditions. So, I spend time learning about the experiences of others so we can support them and meet them where they need rather than assume. So those would be the couple of allyship things I would talk about.
Wow, so some really great sort of suggestions and recommendations there. I always think it's interesting because, and I've sort of seen this as a parent, but neurodiversity does seem to be held out as having a little bit of a bad press, so historically, and unfortunately, neurodiverse people are often judged against what they can't do, as opposed to what they can, and it always seems really unfair to me because I'm not judged against what I can't do, and there are plenty of things I can't do. And it sort of just speaks to that point that you were just saying, Laurie, about, actually everybody will need something a little different to kind of do their best work, succeed, access an opportunity. And it's sort of just actually accepting everybody as a bit of an individual, and, sort of needing different things to kind of do their best work. Rebecca, same question to you, please.
I'm learning so much from these wonderful panelists today. It's really great. Hopefully I don't double up too much, but if there's a point I double up on, I guess that means that it's a really important one and one that we should put more focus on. As a leader, I draw no distinction between the way I lead Ed or any other individual on my team. Everyone's led in exactly the same way, and that way is different, unique, and tailored to each one as an individual. We all have things that we're good at, things not so much, and things we should never go near if our lives depended on it. We all need intelligent and compassionate adjustments as individuals in order to do our best work. Allyship means to me everything from the simple and mundane. For example, do you need noise cancelling headphones? Can you read your screen, or will a coloured filter help? Does your back hurt? Can we get you a special chair? Would you work better with a text-to-speech software, etc.? To the more in-depth conversations, what are you good at? What do you like to do? Where do you find you do your best work? How can we build upon that? Who do you work best with? How do we compare complementary skill sets together on team projects? This then extends into what personally fascinates me most. How do we propel ordinary employees into the realm of the exceptional? To Ed, to the rest of my team, what lights you up? What is your why? Where do you want to get to if there were no limits? And how do we get there together? To me, being an ally is providing the environment, knowledge, training, adjustments, support, and you go get 'em cheerleader style to every individual that I have the privilege to lead. As a corporate leader, allyship means to me asking why we don't hire more neurodivergent talent, challenging the way we do hire, from the advertising all the way through to the interviewing and job offers, to keeping an open mind, challenging those that don't, not being afraid to ask uncomfortable questions, apologizing when I might not have the right words, but not letting that stop me engaging with people and asking the individual, what do you need from me? What can I give you? What language would you like me to use when we discuss your requirements, your divergence, the things that you find harder? Open conversations and the sharing of information without stigma or consequence is absolutely crucial to all of our success. This is where I get soppy. Ed has and will forever have an advocate and ally in me, someone who finds the words when he might have lost them, someone who sings his praises from the rooftop, someone who corrects him when he might need to adjust his viewpoint or way of doing something, someone who can anticipate something that might be an unconsidered trigger for him, someone that will push him repeatedly, but who hopefully makes him feel as though there's absolutely nothing that he cannot achieve in this world, both professionally and personally. I cannot help but feel such tremendous pride and satisfaction as I now watch Ed not only advocate for himself, but everyone else in the community that he represents. And that's exactly what he's doing here today. Thank you.
Wow, amazing. Thank you, Rebecca. Ed, I feel like over to you.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Rebecca. Well, I'm going to talk about allyship more from my perspective, obviously, because it's a slightly different perspective to others. But an ally to me is anyone, and that means anyone ranging from an individual to the employer as a whole, who is on my side and who would allow me to utilize and develop my abilities to my maximum potential. And anyone who doesn't do that is a non-ally. And to explain this, I want to link this with a personal experience of mine at a previous employer versus Willis Towers Watson. At my previous employer, I did feel that I was not seen or heard at all. I was not trusted to utilize my talent, and I was certainly given no opportunities to progress. In effect, I was standing by the printer all day, running off reams and reams of paper. Willis Towers Watson, however, has been nothing short of an ally from the start. Interview adjustments were made very appropriately from the start. I received excellent support from the training manager and the training team. When I was hired, I was put on the right team they believed would be right for my skill set, and as it turned out, it was. Gave me the support I needed to progress. The company has also received external training on neurodiversity from other contacts, which they have themselves paid for. Now, as a result of all that, I'm not standing by the printer all day running off reams and reams and reams of paper. I'm checking technical work of others, which before it gets sent out to clients. I'm writing process guides. I'm doing lots of project work and training of other new joiners. And most importantly, I'm doing professional exams now. In Willis Towers Watson, there is no limit to what I can achieve and accomplish. And this is all because of the allyship that they've given me and shown to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. And I think I can speak for everyone when I say I'm also very glad you're not sitting by the printer wasting your talents. So thank you, everyone, so much for your sort of honesty and your thoughts. So valuable. With a few minutes to go, I thought we could open up to our audience for some questions. I see we have a few coming in already. Alicia, there's one for you, and also brings in Rebecca. So could you say a bit about GAIN, and with Rebecca about adjustments in workplaces to get talents of neurodiverse people? Is a big expensive change needed?
Just a note to producer. Okay, I think I'm back. Thank you very much, Luke. Okay, so I'll answer the question around GAIN. So GAIN is a new not-for-profit community interest company that serves the insurance market and related industries. And I'm really happy to say that I'm part of GAIN, and I've been working behind the scenes to make GAIN happen over the last 12 months. there's a number of people within from the industry with either lived experience of neurodiversity themselves, with a lot of experience in different areas, whether that's pensions, life insurance, or general insurance, as well as some charities as well. So we're truly a collaborative effort. And I think for me personally, I'd also like to say that when I got diagnosed last year, the first thing I did, I went to Deloitte's networks and I searched for neurodiversity. Nothing was there. And I think that's probably an experience of many people who got diagnosed late in life. You get your paper and nowhere to go. So I'm really excited about GAIN being there to serve both people who are neurodivergent themselves, but also the employers. Some of the things I work with autistic individuals one-to-one, and something that stuck with me, with a person I've been working for the last 5 months to help him get into employment again, was the fact that I think we both came to a conclusion that people want to do the right thing, companies want to do the right thing, but sometimes they just don't know how to start, or they are so worried that they'll get it wrong, they'll say the wrong word and they will offend someone, that they don't do the right thing. So yeah, I'm really excited about GAIN launching, and there's actually a GAIN launch on 1st of October. I'll give a little bit more details about that later.
Thank
Thanks,
you. And in
Rita.
terms of adjustments to work being big and expensive, no. I think the things that make the most profound impact and benefit are cultural, are just open conversations, is learning. I don't know anything about leading someone who's neurodivergent. So much information out today. Just a quick Google search or a look on Amazon for a book is going to give you more than enough reading material to get started. In terms of workplace adjustments, it's going to be different for everybody. But it might just be putting somebody next to a window or in a quieter part of the office. It might be, I work better with headphones. Okay, if your organization can't pay for those, now allow them to bring in their own headphones. I think if you work together in tandem, just having that initial conversation, what can we do within the realms of what we're able to do for you right now? People just want to know that you're trying and that you're there for them, and you want the experience to be as good for them as possible so that they can give you their best work. Some things do cost money, and that's worth the investment. There are outside companies that can provide training to your organization, but there are so many grants and government programs that help you sponsor that type of thing as well. So I think the changes and to get started is going to cost you absolutely nothing but the will, interest and determination to start to try.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rebecca. Question from Jane. How do you go about finding neurodiverse candidates for roles? They may not apply since the job spec may ask for things they don't have. I'll open that up to everyone. Anyone have a thought?
I know Ed came to Willis Towers Watson. Yeah, go ahead, Ed.
So,
did you want to talk about the Access to Work program?
Sorry?
Did you want to mention the Access to Work program?
Oh yes, there's a program called that. Maybe you probably understand it better than I do. Why don't you go ahead and talk about it?
Okay. So Ed has been working with through a program called Access to Work, and he's been given a mentor which has assisted him in finding the role at Towers Watson. So we have partnering with that organisation to ensure that the way that we advertise roles and find the appropriate people for roles, including those people that are neurodiverse, to make sure that we can accommodate people correctly all the way through the process. I think Harry mentioned some really good information as well about looking at what does your website look like and how are you writing the job specs and that type of thing. So I'll let them add some more information, but I think it's just looking at the way that you're advertising the role, speaking to people in the community and seeing what types of things they want to have listed on job specs.
Brilliant, thank you. I think we have time for one or two more. Somebody has asked, how do you as an employer encourage a neurodiverse person to come out and be seen and supported?
I have a few thoughts on that.
I was going to say some of them. I'll let you go first, Alicia.
I'd probably just say a few words on that from my personal perspective. I mean, disclosing something that is so dear to someone's identity is tough. And I think to me, it's all about the culture and providing a safe space. I think it also starts with role models. I think we still don't have enough role models, especially in senior positions, who are open about the difference. And to me, I would say that's probably a start, because you need to know that it's a safe space, because it's such a precious piece of information. And again, thinking about so some of the statistics and people who do disclose, I think roughly half wish they didn't, things got worse for them at work, but the other half actually did benefit from it. So it does come down to that psychological safety.
Yeah, I was going to say pretty similar things really to that. I think that we get really hung up on disclosure when actually we need to kind of put the legwork in first to create that trust, that environment where people feel like they're going to be seen, supported first. If we do that, and as Alicia says, the role modeling, the talking about it, even just having conversations about it is a start and a signal to our colleagues that actually we value differences, that you're going to be supported. They will be looking for signs in terms of being able to talk about this, but they will be anxious and worried about revealing it and whether that will have an impact on their career. But as you've heard from everybody today, there may be small adjustments, and those individuals will probably know what those things are that they need to help support them. I know when I need support, I will ask for it, and other ones we can work together on finding support. So by creating that environment that they're getting the right signals, rather than trying to push and disclosure, I would say is the better place to be.
Thank you, Laurie. I think we have time for one quick question. Andrew has asked, I'm interested to become an ally to a neurodiverse colleague. Please, could you offer some suggestions on how I might get started?
Sounds like he already has got started.
Yeah. Any thoughts? Ed, how would you expect somebody to first approach you and offer support?
They need to accept that not every, as I said earlier, that not every neurodiverse individual is the same in the sense that their neurodiversity impacts them differently. So their first thing is that they need to give their time to the employee and understand exactly what it is that they need help with, they need support with, and once that's done, then they can start maximizing the potential out of them. Obviously, they will need extra support still, but they can help them really get their pushing forward in their career. But it all starts with that simple, as Rebecca said, that simple conversation, knowing what their needs are, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and then taking it from there. That's what I would say.
Brilliant, thank you, Ed. And I guess it also links back in with, I think, everyone's comments around sort of just education and, awareness raising, and just, you can do things subtly as well. You don't have to do something directly to an individual. You can, work to, engage with workplace culture in different ways as well to kind of promote a more positive working environment for neurodiverse people. Thank you, everyone, for your wonderful questions. I'm afraid that's all we have time for today, but if we haven't managed to answer your question, please do feel free to get in touch with GAIN or IFN. I'll hand back to Alicia now, who can share contact details for those and wrap things up for us. So many thanks for joining us today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rachel. So first, a few words from me. First of all, I really hope that through the stories of neurodivergent individuals and the allies, that you have been inspired to take action to support and promote neurodiversity in your organization. Myself, today's speakers, and event volunteers would like to thank you for your active participation. I would like to continue this conversation. I would love to know how you're planning to move from intention to action and demonstrate your active allyship for neurodiversity in the workplace. And in terms of what you can do, one thing that I'd like to invite you to do is to spare a few minutes after this event and visit gaintogether.org/dive-in, where you can make your pledge and share with us what you're planning to do as a neurodiversity ally. We also want to support you on this journey, and you'll find on the same page some further resources to help you with your neurodiversity and neuro-inclusion journey. The resources include an insurance-specific neurodiversity guide and toolkit, which was co-created and brought to you by Elliott Partnership, Expander Circle, and GAIN. You're welcome to take a screenshot of the screen now, or if you wish, this information will also be available on the registration portal from Dive-in and the downloads, where you'll be able to access it. Finally, also big thank you to our wonderful event sponsors, speakers, and volunteers for making this event possible. If you have any further questions, as Rachel has mentioned, please get in touch with the neurodiversity networks that are listed on the slide. So we've got GAIN, Insurance Families Networks, and IDON. With 2 minutes to go, thank you again, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day.